Good morning, everyone. My name's Matt, Silicon Valley executive coach and career coach. And today I wanted to share my thoughts on how the job market is changing for folks over 50 and specifically what they can do about it. So if you find yourself in that situation where you're over 50 and like a lot of folks, you've got anxiety about what's next, whether that's AI, whether that's just general layoffs, you're thinking about how do you optimize for your next few years while you're working. So I wanted to share some thoughts there, and hopefully this is useful for you. So if that's you, go ahead and stick around. So first of all, what are we seeing out there? I speak with a lot of clients. A lot of them are 50 plus. And one of the trends that I see is that they have a ton of experience, which is awesome. But the biggest challenge they have is in reframing that experience in a way that makes sense for employers today. So let me give you an example of what I mean. One clear place that you can see this is in resumes. And so you often see this. I'll work with a client, they'll come in and they've got 20 plus years of experience, which is great. But that's reflected in like a 3 to 4 page resume. And it's got roles going back to 1985, 1990, companies that may no longer exist. And to them, it's personal. And I get that. I've had that myself as well. But from an outside perspective, a lot of that information is not useful signal for selecting you for an interview. So the first thing that I work with clients on is prioritizing their experience so that employers can make sense of it and understand how it's going to help them today. So what does that look like in practice? That looks like trimming the resume down often to 2 pages. That might look like removing some previous roles. There's a variety of ways to do it, but the net effect is that we want an optimized resume that employers are going to be interested in today. So that's the first part. The other part is more mindset focused. And this is a big one for a lot of folks. But one challenge that I see is that a lot of people adopt a backwards looking mindset. So what do I mean by that? I mean specifically that they're focused on here's what I have done. And they hope that employers will value that today. But one of the biggest unlocks that I can suggest is to reframe that and think about what can I do going forward? And that's going to help you brainstorm what your future strengths are rather than your past accomplishments. And it's also going to revitalize how you show up, how you interview, and also how you're going to be perceived in the market. So that's the second piece as well. The third piece is really around expectations. So a lot of folks that I've worked with or that I've seen in the past, they often have a linear expectation of their careers. And that's great, and I totally get that. The old path where you're an IC, you work hard, you become a manager, you become a director, and you've earned that, and you've got that experience, and that's meaningful to you personally. But employers often don't think the same way. So the challenge there that I find is that people need to often reset their expectations about what that next step looks like. And that's going to require some introspection for you to really think about, what do you actually want? Like, is it meaningful for you to move up and over to a company? Or would you rather be in a great environment, maybe give up the title, but be somewhere where you can work for the next 5 to 10 years and close out your career? So those are some of the expectations to think about in terms of how you have your own mindset about what you want next. That's the third thing, expectations. The fourth thing I would say is really to think about when you're in the interviews, how you show up. So one thing that I've seen with a lot of folks is that they get this, what I call the elephant in the room problem. So they might be more advanced in their career, they might be highly qualified, and they're interviewing with someone often, 15 to 20 years younger, right? And so what I found is that, in a lot of the interview coaching I do, it's better to deflate the elephant in the room. So what I mean by that is to call it out early. Because what I find is that a lot of folks will go into these interviews, they'll have these conversations, and they'll get some kind of feedback that sounds like, hey, you're great. We're just worried you might be overqualified, something along those lines. And to me, the way that you mitigate that is you really just open up the conversation early, because if they're thinking that anyway, you got to get ahead of it. So that could look like a few common tactics that I use. One would be, hey, before we kick off this interview, you might be wondering, why this role is interesting to me specifically. Let me explain it. And then that provides you an opening to go deeper, to tell your story, why this might work for you, whereas on paper it might not. And that can often help to mitigate a lot of that hidden concern that interviewers have but don't express there. So in summary, those are just a few things that you can use to reset how you're approaching the job market in your 50s. So again, one is the resume, how you frame your experience, adopting a forward-focused mindset, and then also really focusing on eliminating the elephant in the room in the interviews. So hopefully these tips are helpful for you. If it is, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Would love to share these tips with you all going forward. Have a great day. Thanks.